Once you have an amazing story ready to go, it's time to top it off with an amazing headline. Our one level of this target is that you can write a headline that includes the topic. There's nothing fancy about it. It at least tells us what the article is going to be about, but you can do so much more. At the 2 level, you can write a headline that conveys obvious information about the topic. So it's not just basketball, but it might be basketball wins. But, as before, you can do more. At the 3 level, you can write an engaging headline that complements the story, and we'll talk about what that will look like. At the 4 level, you can do that, and specifically for yearbook, you can use the theme as well. So there are 2 types of headline to consider, and when we talk about these 2 types, we're really talking more about yearbook. For newspaper, it's common to just have a single headline. For smaller stories, front page news will typically have 2, but we're not necessarily in that kind of business. So for our purposes, 2 types of headline will go on the yearbook, and you can simply use 1 headline for your newspaper stories. But yearbook first. You'll have your primary headline. This is the largest or the main headline, and it's meant to grab the reader's attention. On a physical level, it is bigger and bolder for emphasis, and it's usually short, less than 5 words. A secondary headline, and again for us this will be yearbook only. Oop, it's not written very well. Is a smaller headline that explains the primary headline and connects it to the story. This will be no longer than 1 sentence, and it will include the topic of the yearbook spread. That may or may not be present in your primary headline, depending on what you choose. Now, our engaging primary headlines, the short ones, go beyond just the topic. They're not going to be just JV basketball. They're going to include wordplay like puns, alliteration, personification, metaphor, and they're going to connect to the theme of the yearbook. So whatever we choose for the theme needs to be weighty enough to help us make a good headline for all the spreads that we have. Secondary headlines are meant to be helpful, engaging too, but their primary use is to help us understand what the story will be about. So here you definitely need to include the topic and the angle, and they're going to appear in close proximity to the primary headline, okay? Now you can sometimes break that rule. You might have a primary headline on the top of a spread and the secondary on the bottom or just above the article itself, but generally they're going to appear right next to each other. Here's some examples from our Moving in a New Direction yearbook. For the NHS page, we went with Leadership is the New Direction. Notice in the primary headline, we're not even talking about NHS yet. We're talking about a major focus of NHS that year, which was the leadership, and then we're using New Direction to mimic the theme to help build into that. In our secondary headline, we get more specifically, we share the angle of this particular article. We've got NHS and then what they were doing. Their focus expands with a new advisor. In another example for another spread, we said new names, new roles. So we're capitalizing on the rhetorical trick of repetition, right? New and new. And then we're also building in some idea of what we're going to talk about. Short though, again, just for engagement here. But the secondary headline again gives more direction. We're talking about the drama club and how they had a lot of underclassmen this year, which was a specific angle of the article. Okay, so 2 examples for you. Again, primarily talking about yearbook here, but even your newspaper articles should have an engaging headline.